Growing durable eucalypts in Australia is a bit of an underdog thing to do as well. But that indeed is what... Oh no, this is going to be arduous. Excuse me for being surprised at some of the things that I seem to have managed to make my presentation do. Obviously, the company that I'm working for, Heartland Plantations, we are all about growing durable eucalypts, as you guys are focusing on as well. But we are, one of few companies in Australia who are doing so. So I'll just give you a bit of a background of what we're doing and what our challenges are. So just a little bit of background about the Aussie hardwood market so that you sort of understand what our drivers are, I suppose, for our business. So in answer to your question from earlier, Ewan, we have 1 million hectares of hardwood plantation in Australia. But less than 20% of that essentially is grown for sawn timber, and less than 5% of that is grown for durable saw logs. Now, in the state of Victoria alone, $60 million worth of durable timber is used per annum, but only 10 million of that is actually supplied from our own resources, and our own resources are 99% out of our native forest harvest. There's really no plantation resource supplying any of that demand at the moment. The balance we import, and we expect that gap between supply and demand to widen as in particular public pressure grows for us to withdraw from harvesting in native forest, as has happened already in some states of Australia. So we're quite confident that there is a market, a strong market there, both now but particularly in the future, for actually providing an alternative resource for hardwood sawn timber. And in particular durable timbers. So just a little bit in terms of our company structure. I'm employed by Heartland Plantations, which is a forest growing company, but we're also in partnership with basically a timber processor by the name of Radial Timbers, and they operate a radial sawmill. Now, I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with the radial sawmilling technique, but I'll just explain a little bit about that. Essentially, as you can see in that picture, this sort of bottom right-hand corner picture here, basically the radial sawmilling technique essentially splits the log into wedges and then backsaws boards out of each of the wedges. Now, the whole idea there is that by cutting the log into wedges, I guess the idea is that we're simulating the natural splitting process that a eucalypt would go through when it dries out. So if we can try and cut the logs in that sort of along those natural splitting lines, that we can relieve those growth stresses quickly and I suppose get ahead of those that splitting that we don't want to be seeing. And I'll just push through to this slide here, which really shows, I guess, you can sort of see, glass, come back. Oh, sorry. So you can sort of see here that this is the sort of wedge. These are the wedges that are cut out, sort of split the log like a celery stick, and you can see there's a little bit of warping there, but not as much as you might see if you sawed it differently. So I guess the reason for pointing that out is that one of the reasons why we have established this relationship with Radial Timbers is because we feel like I guess their sawing technique is quite likely to be more suitable to the product that we're growing than the other sawing technologies that we have available in Australia at the moment. So notwithstanding any gains that we're able to make through tree breeding in terms of I guess finding genetics that are less likely to split, that for us it's also about trying to find and hone sawing technologies that will be suitable to the product that we're creating, as opposed to the product that our processing industry is currently harvesting out of native forest. So I just wanted to point out again over here basically what that mill is cutting at the moment is about 5,000 metres cubed a year, and they're looking to increase that to about 15,000 metres cubed a year over the next couple of years. Our forest growing company is basically aiming to try to generate a product that will be able to allow that mill to be self-sustaining by the year 2030, which essentially means that we're looking at establishing an estate of about 3,000 to 4,000 hectares. So that's sort of our objective from a forest growing perspective at the moment. Those are some of our leading men, but we won't linger on them. They're not here. So look, some of the products that the mill is processing are some of the products that we will essentially be looking to produce as well. These guys have been quite creative about how they can, create alternative products out of a product that's cut a little bit differently to the traditional milling techniques. So, for example, we've got some screen boards there on screen now. External cladding. This decking is quite popular, and I've actually got a few samples here, both of yellow stringy bark and southern mahogany. If you want to have a look at it a little bit later, you can see they're sort of cut with a bit of a beveled edge, which I guess accounts for the radial sawmilling technique. But also, just to point out in this picture in particular, that they've been quite clever about marketing the small piece size boards as well as the wider boards, so that both with the flooring, with the screen boards and the cladding and that sort of thing, they've sort of said, you know, there's no reason why we can't use all the material that we're cutting here. We just need to be clever about how we market it so that it's attractive to people. So that's what they've done, and they've had really popular uptake of some of these products by just being a little bit creative about that. Also internal flooring and that sort of thing, but they're really aiming for the durable external feature grade timber, I guess. So that's the sort of market that we are trying to, generate to feed into their business, and subsequently to feed into, you know, other processing facilities as they develop over time. So in terms of our business goals, as I said, we're sort of aiming for a 3,000 to 4,000 hectare estate of durable appearance grade timber, and also to provide a profitable forestry investment for our growers. So in terms of the way our estate is structured, we don't actually own any of the land. Our land is owned by private investors. Some of them are repeat investors who own a variety of blocks. Some of them are just individual investors. Some of them are people who live and work on the land and have, you know, experience as farmers, but a lot of them don't have any experience with actually farming the land. We've got about 50 plantation properties that we manage at the moment that sort of range in size from, 5 to 120 hectares. So there's quite a lot of variation in terms of the way that we manage those blocks. And we are mostly located in southern Victoria in an area called Gippsland. I'll show you a bit of a map shortly. And our oldest plantations are coming up to about 17 years of age at the moment. Now, there's been a lot of discussion today about how we choose species, and similarly, we've got our hit list of desirable characteristics, and in particular, we've obviously been looking at, which timber properties are desirable to us, and also which growth characteristics are desirable to us, and it's about finding a happy medium between those two. So obviously, durability, appearance, and other wood property features that are currently accepted in our market are some of the things that we're aiming for. We might have to step outside our comfort zone a little bit there as we move along and we start looking at some different species, but that's what we're sort of aiming for at the moment. And also in respect to that, so looking at growth characteristics, there's a range of things we're looking for there as well, as we've spoken about a lot today, in terms of, growth performance, heartwood development, natural form, resilience, suitability across a range of sites, and obviously aiming for some improved genetics. But to find a bit of a balance between those things is easier said than done. So looking at durability specifically, for example, here, you can see there's a range of species listed there, some of which you guys have been exploring as well. And obviously the species at the top of the list there are the most durable, both in terms of above and below ground durability. We've played around a little bit with sugar gum and coast grey box, red ironbark certainly as well. but we haven't given a lot of attention to those species because they, well, certainly for the red ironbark and the sugar gum, are much slower growing, and we're sort of after species that we can generate, I suppose, a more commercial return from in terms of our growth rates at the moment in the country that we're growing them in. So we've gone for some faster growing species, but by the same token we've sacrificed a level of durability there, and so we are looking from year to year to try a few different species from time to time, including some of the species that you guys are exploring at the moment. But the reason that we've gone with these species that are highlighted in black here, which are our focal 4 at the moment, are essentially because they've got some durability characteristics, but also they've got other wood properties characteristics that are suitable to our markets, and we know that we can grow them. And I guess unlike having quite a comprehensive research program, that for us we are growing at a commercial scale, so we need there to be a minimum level of success in doing that. And so essentially we need to be able to pick species that we know we've got some confidence that we can grow, and then start to build up our confidence with other species in a slower time frame, I guess. All right. Okay, so this is just a reiteration. So our key species are Corymbium maculata, Eucalyptus muelleriana, Eucalyptus botryoides, and Eucalyptus seabrii, and we've played around with some of these other species as well, and we'll continue to do so. So it's really interesting for us to see the results that you guys are getting with some of your species. We can learn a lot from that in terms of trying to prioritise which species we should try. Now, I'm not sure if you can see the writing up there very well, but in terms of what comprises the bulk of our estate, spotted gum is about 30%, the southern mahogany is about 20%, and the yellow stringy bark is about 20% at the moment. And then we've actually got quite a bit of Cladocalyx planted, and then a smattering of other species as well. Okay, now I'm just going to flick through. I've got some slides here. Well, it's probably worth just having a look at the pictures as we go through here. I won't talk about the pros and cons of the different species, but we do have some really nice stands. And now that we've sort of got some stands that are maturing of the different species, we have got some confidence from those stands. So both the spotted gum there and the yellow stringy bark here, and southern mahogany here, we're getting some nice results now, and we haven't gotten it right on every occasion, but we've been able to learn a lot from what we have planted so far. Harriet, just wave at me. Oh, 2 minutes, crikey. All right. So look, just quickly, I wanted to show you a little bit about where we're operating. So you can see just here, this is basically where our estate is. We're basically in the southernmost part of the Australian mainland. And that is equivalent to, that G over there stands for Gisborne. So that's where we sort of sit in relation to latitudes with New Zealand. It's interesting to me that's actually quite, to me that seems a long way up in terms of the north of the North Island of New Zealand, and that's almost as far south as we can go in Australia. But there's a lot, I suppose the point is there's a lot that we can learn in terms of climatic parallels between what you guys are doing and what we're doing there in Victoria. Also, just to point out here, this is sort of the land, this I guess illustrates the landscapes that we're working with. So these red points are where some of our plantations are, and this blue dot is where our mill is, and we're trying to cluster our plantations around our mill area in terms of economy of transport to the mill. But we've basically got these coastal flats along here which are quite sandy, low altitude, quite dry often, so the mean annual rainfall there is about 500 to 700 mils per annum. We get a lot of coastal winds, so a lot of exposure along here. So drought, both from a wind and moisture perspective, is quite an issue along here. Then we've got these plantations that are up in the hill country. We're talking about 500 metres altitude. We're up to about 1,400 mils per annum in terms of rainfall. Much steeper country. There are quite different challenges between the two areas in terms of establishment challenges and that sort of thing, and certainly in terms of our site species matching, there's a lot for us to consider there in terms of the variability of our sites. And in terms of soils as well, there's a lot of variability there. So as I said, we've got quite sandy soils along here. We've got much, they're more clayey soils up in the hills, but not necessarily heavy clays, sort of light to medium clays, but not necessarily high in fertility. So we've got a few different things there that we need to consider. Now I'll just plug past all of this. If anyone wants to know anything about anything that I'm skipping past, then just come and have a chat to me later. And just, I suppose, as a bit of an illustration of the different sites we're working with, these are two of the sites that we have established just recently. So this site at the top is one of those coastal sites. It's a second rotation site, so an ex-pine site, and a lot of our sites now are second rotation, both ex-pine and ex-bluegum. So that throws up a few challenges in the establishment mix that we don't otherwise have to deal with on our first rotation or greenfield sites, such as this one down the bottom. But this is a hill country site, and we've got a whole suite of different environmental conditions to deal with here. Now, look, I won't go into the details of our establishment, although I was going to. But look, these things on the screen are some of the key things that influence our plantation success. Site species matching is critical. Some of our establishment techniques are actually quite critical in terms of the success of the plantation. Access to moisture, our pruning and thinning strategies, getting our genetics right, and that's a long-term kind of vision. Understanding nutrition is something that we really need to deal with. And then we've got external impacts like, browsing, fire, hail has been quite an issue for us. Managing frost is also an issue. So there's a whole range of things there for us to consider. As I say, I won't labour the point on establishment. It's probably interesting for you to know that we planted about 1,000 stems per hectare, roughly, depending on the species. We do prune. We do 3 prunes. Our pruning crew at the moment is a bunch of Kiwis, and they're doing a pretty good job, so thanks for providing that talent. We are also aiming to do thinning, 3 thinnings, so 1 non-commercial thinning early in the life of the plantation, and then we're aiming for 2 commercial thinnings, but whether or not that's a feasible thing to do will depend on whether we can find markets for our early thinnings. At the moment, we don't have strong markets for our early thinnings. But also thinning is important from a silvicultural and stand management perspective. And then we're aiming for final harvest between age 25 to 30, depending on the site. So that's just a picture of a thinned 14-year-old southern mahogany stand. So it's just had its first commercial thin. So we thought that looked pretty good. So in terms of our R&D priorities, we've got a lot of challenges, both in terms of understanding our species and in terms of understanding how to grow them and how to process them. So certainly genetics in terms of productivity, form and heartwood development, something that we're looking to do a lot more work on. Nutrition for eucalypts is really poorly understood, and our soils in Australia are pretty terrible. So being able to match the nutrient availability out of our sites and the nutrient requirements of our different species is something that we need to do a lot more work on. Understanding the impact of our pruning and thinning strategies is really important, and again something that we get more experience with as we measure the performance of our older plantations. Looking at our plantation versus native forest wood properties and how we can turn different products out of that, how we can process those products. As I mentioned earlier, sort of understanding early age thinning product development and that sort of thing. Harvesting technologies and certainly establishment technologies as well are important to us. We have in the 2000s, so particularly in the early to mid 2000s, we had the opportunity to undertake a lot of collaboration with a lot of different players in Australia in particular who were, interested in what we were doing, and we're doing similar things, supported by different government and industry bodies. Unfortunately, a lot of that support has fallen away now. So for us, it's about finding new partners to collaborate with. So we're really interested in what you guys are all doing. And for us, it's just about setting priorities and chipping away at it a little bit year by year so that we can just progressively refine what we're doing, essentially. So I'll just flick. We're over? Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, I'll just flick past all of this. I'm nearly done.
What I see is a tree grower article, for sure.
Oh, yes. Look, this is definitely we're definitely preoccupied with how to grow trees as well as which trees to grow, because certainly a lot of our time is spent trying to grow trees effectively and efficiently. Just a quick mention, we are doing some boxed heart post trials, so we're pretty interested in the results of that, although Paul has spoken to me about some of the work that's been done here, which might supersede what we're doing there. And also just a quick mention that we also have a branch of our business called Beyond Subsistence, which basically is involved in teaching agroforestry techniques in some countries in Africa, which is sort of a part of, I guess, our company's way of giving back to the community. And that is it. If anyone has any questions, feel free to have a chat to me later.